Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to SEDA College Online. I'm teacher Camila, and this is our review lesson. So welcome back to one more class, and thank you for coming. Thank you for participating, and congratulations for your efforts of improving your English at home. Yeah. So as you know, here we have different reviews of different topics every day, and today and also tomorrow we're going to be talking about the conditionals, because some of my students tell me that they know how to use, but that sometimes they get confused in which situation to use which, and sometimes they get confused in which is the first, which is the second, which is the third. So today we're going to review the first and the second conditional, and tomorrow we're going to talk about the third. Okay? So make sure you're ready. Make sure you have the material that you need to participate on the class. We have a few exercises to practice, because I think that the best way to review is by trying, by make mistake, and then correcting and understanding. So if you can, try to participate on the exercises, and we're going to do the correction during the class. And this way you can realize what are your difficulties with the conditional and which mistakes were you making, and hopefully it will be easier and clearer for you at the end of the class. All right, now let's start with the first conditional. So the first conditional has the present simple after if, and then the future in the other clause. So the structure of the first conditional is if plus present simple, and then the second clause will plus infinitive. So one example of this sentence is, if I study hard, I will pass the exam. What I can say about the conditional is that we usually are talking about cause and consequence. So if I do something, I will have a consequence. So if I go to the gym every day, I will be fit and healthy. So whatever I do in the present, I will have a consequence in the future. That's the basis of the first conditional. So the first conditional is used to talk about something that will probably happen or is likely to happen in the future. It can also be used to give advice. So the structure is made up of two clauses. A clause starting with if in the present simple tense. A clause with the future using will. And here is why sometimes students get confused, because we learn that the structure is present simple and will. But there are other types of words that can show us the future meaning. So here you can use a clause with the future meaning, use will, be going to, or a modal to talk about the future, such as might or should, or other words that indicate future time. So it doesn't have to be exclusively will. It can be any other word that show us that we're talking about the future. So we have two uses here. One is to talk about consequence, in the sense of if you do something, there is a consequence that's very likely to happen. Yeah, you're sure or almost sure that will happen in the future. Or to give advice. Let's see the examples here. If you work harder, you will have enough money to go to Paris. So here is an advice. You can imagine two friends talking, and one friend really wants to go to Paris, and the other one is trying to give an advice. So if you work harder, you will have money to go to Paris. Or you will have enough money to go to Paris if you work harder. So we have two clauses, the if clause and the main clause, and they can change place. So for example, here we start with the if clause, yeah? If you work harder, you will have enough money to go to Paris. Or you can do the other way around. You will have enough money to go to Paris if you work harder, and it doesn't change the meaning on anything. The if clause is always with the present simple, and the main clause is always with the future. Yeah, very simple. Let's try some examples and some exercises. Complete the first conditional sentences about giving advice with the words from the box. Use the correct form of the verb in the sentences. You can use each word only once. So you have 5 sentences there and you have a few words here. Try to complete the sentences imagining the first conditional, so present simple and future, or future and present simple, and cause and consequence. Okay, so these are 5 pieces of advice. I'm gonna give you 1.5 minutes and then we're gonna check them together. Okay, let's work. Go ahead. So pay attention if it's the if clause, if it's the consequence, if it's the main clause. All right, can we check together? Yeah, let's see. She will be able to do more at work if she hires an assistant. So here we have the future will be able to, and the if clause with the present simple. If you report the crime to the police, they will help you. So if clause with present simple will help you. He might understand if she explains why she has to leave. So might here is our indication of future time, and here if plus present simple explains. 4. If you don't want to go with them, you should tell them. So here present simple in the negative form. You should tell them. Should to indicate future. Important, guys. When we start the sentence with the if clause, we need to use a comma, like here again. So if we start with the if clause, we need to add a comma at the end of the clause, and then we start the main clause, like here. If you don't want to go with them, comma, you should tell them. And number 5, if you don't tell your boss, so if clause, present simple negative, comma, he might blame someone else for the mistake. Might to indicate future time. All right, let's do one more exercise about first conditional. Fill in the sentences using the verbs in brackets to form the first conditional. So pay attention which one is the if clause and which one is the consequence, which one is the main clause. And then also pay attention when we're talking about present simple, we might use don't or doesn't for negative. And if it's an affirmative in the third person, we need to add an s to the verb. Yeah? So I'm going to give you 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. Complete the sentences and then we're going to check them on the next slide, okay? Let's work. One more minute. All right, can we start checking the answers? Yeah? Let's see. If I go out tonight, I will go to the cinema. 2. If you get back late, I will be angry. 3. If we don't see each other tomorrow, we will see each other next week. 4. If he comes, I will be surprised. 5. So sorry guys, so number 4, remember I told you if it's an affirmative sentence in the third person, remember to add the as to the affirmative verb, yeah? 5. If we wait here, we will be late. If we go on holidays this summer, we will go to Spain. 7. If the weather doesn't improve, so weather's it, so doesn't improve, we won't have a picnic. 8. If I don't go to bed early, I will be tired tomorrow. 9. If we eat all this cake, we will feel sick. And the last one, if you don't want to go out, I will cook dinner at home. So all of these were simple sentences starting with the if clause plus present simple and also using will in the second clause. But remember, they can change places and that we can use other words such as will be able to, should, and might to talk about the present. To talk about the future, all right? Now let's talk about the second conditional. The second conditional uses the past simple after if, then would and the infinitive. So the structure is if plus past simple and then the second clause would plus infinitive. So we can use were instead of was with I, he, she, and it. This is mostly done in formal writing. So I don't know if you know Beyonce's song that she says, if I were a boy. This is grammatically correctly when you're talking about second conditional. It's correct when you're using the second conditional and you're using the verb be in the past, you can use were for all of the subjects. You don't need to use was. And the second conditional has two uses, so let's talk about the two of them. First, we can use it to talk about things in the future that are probably not going to be true. So here is the catch. Remember, the first conditional is something that's probably going to happen. It's probably going to be the consequence of the action in the present. But here, when we use the second conditional, we're mostly talking about something that is not likely to be true in the future. So some examples here. If I won the lottery, I would buy a big house. But what are the chances that you can win the lottery? The chances are very small, so it probably is not going to happen. If I met the Queen of English, I would say hello. So your chances of meeting her are really, really slow. Really, really low, yeah. And the last one, she would travel all over the world if she were rich, which she isn't. So it's not that these things can't happen, but the chances are very, very small. So it's probably not going to be true. Yeah? And the second use. Second, we can use it to talk about something in the present, which is impossible because it's not true. Examples. If I had his number, I would call him. But I don't have his number now, so it's impossible for me to call him. If I were you, I wouldn't go out with that man. But I'm not you, and this is impossible to happen. So that's why we use the second conditional. So past simple in the if clause and would plus infinitive in the main clause to talk about something that are probably not going to be true in the future or things that are impossible in the present. All right? Let's practice together. I have here some sentences. They all start with the if clause. So all of them need the past simple. And the second clause will be would plus infinitive. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes again. Complete these sentences using the second conditional. And then we're going to talk about them together, okay? 2 minutes. Let's work. Okay, 1 more minute and we check the answers. Okay, can we start checking our answers? Let's see. Number 1, if I were you, I would get a new job. So remember that I told you when using the verb be in the past here, we can use were for all of the subjects, okay? So if I were you, I would get a new job. So it's an impossible situation in the present because it can't be you. If he were younger, so again, were in the past, he would travel more. 3, if we weren't friends, I would be angry with you. 4, if I had enough money, I would buy a big house. So this is not very likely to be true because I don't have a lot of money. If she weren't always so late, she would be promoted. 6, if we won the lottery, we would travel the world. 7, if you had a better job, we would be able to buy a new car. 8, if I spoke perfect English, I would have a good job. If we lived in Mexico, I would speak Spanish. And 10, if she passed the exam, she would be able to enter university. Yeah? So all of the sentences is starting with the if clause and then would plus infinitive in the main clause. Now let's compare the two of them, the first and the second conditional. How are they different? The second conditional is different from the first because it's a lot more unlikely. So when we use the second conditional, we are almost sure that this is not going to happen in the future. For example, if I had enough money, I would buy a house with 20 bedrooms and a swimming pool. So I'm probably not going to have this much money. It's just a dream, not very real. And the second conditional is something more likely to be true. So if I have enough money, I will buy some new shoes. So it's much more likely that I'll have money to buy some shoes instead of the big house with 20 bedrooms. So first condition is something more real, more likely to be true. Second condition is mostly about a dream, something you wish, but it's not very likely to be true. Yeah, it's much more unlikely. Now, the last exercise of the day, we're gonna do an exercise where they're all mixed, first and second conditional. So I want you to evaluate the sentence and see if it's something likely or unlikely to be true, and then complete the sentence, okay? 1 minute, 2 minutes, and then we correct. Let's work. One more minute and we start checking, okay? All right, shall we start the correction? Yeah? So guys, before I start the correction, my tip is you have to remember the structure. So one is present simple plus future, will, or any other word to show future, and the other one is past simple plus would. So in order to find out how to complete, you need to pay attention to one of the sentences. Is it present simple? Is it past? Is it would? So let's analyze together, okay? If global warming continues, so continuous is present simple. Temperatures will rise even higher. First conditional. 2. What would you do if you won $1 million? So what would you is hypothetical, something not likely to be true. Second conditional. 3. If people stopped, past simple, using cars completely, there would be much less pollution. 4. When it rains, again, so present simple, I won't forget to bring my umbrella. 5. If I spoke, past simple, English fluently, I wouldn't need to take lessons. If Siberia weren't so cold, I'd go there. So this D is the contracted form of would. So that's why we're using past simple here. And remember that we can use were or weren't for all the subjects when you're using the if clause. 7. Tom will be at the party, so future will be at the party tonight. If I see him present, I will say hello. 8. If it didn't rain so much in England, you wouldn't see so many umbrellas. So wouldn't see. So here we completed with the past simple in the negative form. 9. I will call you when I get home. Get is present simple, will call. And the last one, where will you live when you move out of your flat? So move out is in the present simple, will you live? Question form for the future. Okay? Alright guys, that's our lesson of the day. I hope you guys have understood the difference between first and second conditional and how and when to use them. And if you didn't have time to do all of the exercises, you can download these slides and practice with them after the class. Okay? Thank you so much for coming. Tomorrow we're gonna talk about the third conditional, so don't miss our class. I'll be here tomorrow at the same time. All right? Thank you guys. See you tomorrow. Have a lovely evening. Bye.